All right. Well, as we said earlier on in the show, the Libertarians had their national convention for 2024, where they picked their presidential nominee, their vice presidential nominee, among a few other things. And there was a little bit of drama. There's some anger. A lot of people aren't too happy with who the choice was. So we decided to bring on a friend of mine who also happens to be the chairwoman. I don't know the politically correct term for it, so I'm just going to roll with it. The chairperson of the Nebraska Libertarian Party. She's also the host of a dope show. I believe it airs every Monday. It's called the Anti-Politics Show, or the Anti-Politics Podcast, wherever you get your shows that they're not banned from. I know we're banned from a couple different mediums here, but nonetheless, say what's up to my friend Rachael Nelson. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. I just got back from DC on Tuesday, so I'm still kind of settling into the time change and being back here with work and mom stuff,
Yeah. And you drove, correct?
Correct. I drove from Nebraska, so I left my area on the western side, drove into Omaha, picked up the rest of my delegation, and then we drove from Omaha to DC, and then we did the same thing all the way back.
That sounds like hell. That sounds
It was not great. We were supposed to have a van, and they only gave us a Durango.
Oh,
so
God.
we had less space, and there were 4 guys and myself on the way there, and then it was only 3, and one of them flew home. He couldn't do it. I was going to
say, what, did you kill the other one? You got tired of riding with him, or what happened? Just leave him for dead?
No, he decided to fly back because we were all pretty cramped in the Durango, and we all had decided we wanted to take the road trip, but then it was less comfortable. So he decided to fly back, which made the trip easier. It's still 20 some hours, but
oh, for sure,
we made it.
Yeah, dude, everyone likes the idea of a road trip, but not the actual practice of it. It's fun for the first 2-3 hours, and then you're all at each other's throats. It's just frustrating as hell. You're hungry, you're cramped, you're tired. Just none of it's fun.
On the way there, like the first 10 hours, we were all pretty solid. We were having a good time. We had a lot of shop to talk about. And then the last 9 hours, it was the question of, when are we going to be there? And on the way back, I was fine until I had my last 4-hour stretch by myself. Yeah. And then I was very done driving. Very, very done. Did
you go through the Smoky Mountains at all?
No.
Or the Appalachian? Oh, it's hell. We just did a trip down to Tennessee last summer, and we drove through the Smoky Mountains, and it was, we went through this thing called the Tail of the Dragon, which is 300 and something turns in a mile and a half. And I'm doing this at night for the first time in a pickup truck that's not mine. And it was, I don't think I've been through a school shooting. I've never been so stressed in my life. So that's my most recent association with road trips. Other side of the country, West Coast, no problem. I'll drive all day. I will never drive to the eastern part of the country again, though. That's why I asked. So.
Yeah, we went through, and the big thing for us is we did go over the Appalachians, but nothing too crazy. It was a pretty normal route.
The main highways aren't bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Columbus was rough, and it was just, we hit at the right time, I guess. And it was just, people were flying everywhere. And I'm from Seattle, but these people cannot fucking drive. It was pretty intense. And I hadn't driven all day, and they're like, here, you drive. And as soon as we get to Columbus, it was my turn. And I was like, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Well, that's so what they get for letting women drive. Anyway.
Yes.
So how was the convention? I heard it went flawlessly, and there was no drama whatsoever. Nobody got in any arguments, and everybody came to the same general consensus. Is that about accurate?
Fuck no. It was a goddamn shit show.
What? Okay, so my audience is largely not libertarian. I mean, they're probably libertarian leaning, but not party members. How does it work, and what happened?
Okay, so the basic way it works is you have delegates from every state. The amount of people you have in your state kind of dictates how many.
Yeah.
So in Nebraska, we had 9 go.
Sure.
California, for example, had 103. So it kind of depends on the state how many you get. We're a fairly small delegation. Hawaii is also pretty small. So you send your delegates that you are picked by the state at your convention. That's very important, because that's getting a lot of people in trouble. The people you send are picked by the people that show up to your convention.
Right.
Then they go and they vote. So they vote for all the new officers. They vote for president and vice president, all that fun stuff. The officers went fairly smoothly. We kind of knew it was going to happen. Not everybody was super thrilled. That's the voting process, but that settled.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to the speeches for Trump, things got nasty.
Yeah.
And and then when we did the vice president and presidential voting, it went well into the night. Like, we were supposed to close business by 5, and it was close to 1 a.m. with president and vice president. So that's not how it should go, but it was a shit show.
See, my wife is the type of person that's hitting her peak at 1 a.m. She's thriving at that hour, so she would have been perfect for that. I know most people aren't that way. They're not night owls. But so what happened? So let's back to the Trump thing. What happened with that? So from what I understand, this is unprecedented. It's never happened in the history of this country before where a presidential candidate went and spoke at a rival party's convention. And you got 2 of them with Trump and RFK, correct?
Correct. And we had Ramaswamy also come in. I don't know where he falls, but he's also someone who came in and spoke to us. Yeah, it is. It's unprecedented. We haven't, no other buddy that I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong, and trust me, anybody watching this lately will. I don't think it's ever happened. But when we decided to make this decision, a lot of the chairs across the country talked with the national chair, and the decision was made to invite them, partly because we didn't think they would show. It would be cool if they did. We didn't really think so. But when they responded that they would, it was a huge deal. And the whole plan, if they responded, was to get the media off of it, because we are a very small party. We're not, we're shocker. We know this. We are well aware of where we stand in the campaign.
Trump reminded you.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Multiple times, which I will say he was right on brand. Like, when we walked, getting in was a fucking nightmare. They stole our lighters and then threw them away.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was like, you could have just kept we all had them on a table, and we're like, leave them here. And they're like, well, someone's going to steal them. No, we all are libertarians. We know we need our lighters. Leave them on this table. They'll still be here. Well, we came out and they'd thrown them all away.
Yeah.
So that was shitty. But we went in and he kept saying, you only get 3%. Join with me and you'll win. All this shit. And he got booed.
Yeah.
Mercilessly booed. Everybody was yelling. Unfortunately, the Secret Service had to step in and drag one of our guys off a chair and out of the Trump. Yeah.
Wow.
He wouldn't get off the chair. Everybody said, get off the chair and stop saying things and throwing things and being a turd and hitting people with signs. And they told him a couple times, and then they drug him off the chair and drug him out. The Secret Service did not have to step in. They called the thing. Security ended up taking him. He returned the next day, but he was drug out of there. It was ugly.
Was he drunk?
No, that's just who Star Child is.
Oh, I've met Star Child. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. For those of you listening, if you don't know who that is, do a little quick Google search on your phone. Just search Star Child political activist, and you'll understand exactly what she just said. That makes a lot of sense now. So what is this? I heard there were rubber chickens involved, or is that a rumor?
So there were a couple different, like, kazoos got passed out for, I believe that one was supposed to be for RFK, but obviously they got in other places. And then there were the rubber chickens that make the squawking noise that were given out to take to Trump's speech, just to be annoying, I guess. I'm not sure. They wouldn't let them in the end, so only a few got in. And then they just returned all weekend. Everybody else had to deal with the chicken.
Well, that's my thing, is you shouldn't want to drown out somebody who's just coming to talk. It's not like he's coming there to have you arrested or anything like that. If someone's coming to talk, you should at least hear them out. I mean, otherwise you're no different than the Antifa folks that show up to Jordan Peterson rallies and assault people and try to terrorize people off the stage. You agree or no?
Oh, I agree. And honestly, yes, he was booed and those moments were good, but I will give majority of the people in the crowd the benefit of the doubt that we were able to hear him. Like, he did speak. We did boo when he made some really stupid comments, but I mean, we cheer when people make good comments. It was no different treatment towards him than we do everybody else that speaks. I was proud of us in that case. I think the Trump event went well. We got massive amounts of media, and majority of it, I would say 95%, have been positive. Trump was booed. Trump was not there. The Libertarians made it clear we weren't voting for him. They were pretty good. It worked.
Well, as someone who watches politics from the outside of every party, I would have to, that's the most national attention I think I've ever seen the Libertarian Party get. And it wasn't necessarily negative, like you said. So I know a lot of people, I know there was some criticism, and correct me if I'm wrong, Biden was invited to this as well. He just said no, right?
Correct. We invited all three. RFK immediately responded. Trump took a while. But yes, Biden just never said anything. Nothing.
And that's the thing, is credit where it's due to Trump. Only Trump would go into the belly of the beast like that. There's no chance in hell. Biden would have a stroke if he walked on stage to people booing him like that. And everybody knows it.
He came on and did like a little dance. Like I have videos. He came on, like danced in the crowd, and like he came up and he was just, I mean, so the actual quintessential, like what you would think Trump and his full Trumpness would be, he did. Like he came out and danced and he did all his hand motions and he made the comments. He even like accentuated things he'd normally say that people make fun of. Like he was full, he knew, and he walked in saying, I know I'm not welcome here. But I kind of feel honored at the fact that I got to sit. I had a press badge because the politics podcast show, so I was able to sit up front, and I was kind of honored to be able to spend that kind of time. He's been one of the most influential businessmen in our life, and one of the most controversial presidents and political leaders for the last 8+ years. It was still really cool to be able to listen to him talk, and I thought we did a very good job, and I think it was pretty amazing that he was willing to walk in there and deal with it, because he walked into a room of people who arguably hated him already.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, anytime you get to see a president in person speak, I think you should, if you can, seize the opportunity. When I was in like fourth grade, I saw George W. Bush in Iowa. And we all know how I've made it clear how I feel about George W. Bush, but it was still cool that I got to see the president. You know what I mean? Like it's just like maybe not once in a lifetime thing, but it's a rare opportunity that I think everyone should experience at least once. So I just don't understand being upset about it the way some people were. So he did ask you guys to nominate him for president under your party. How was that received? Did anyone give it any serious thought, or was it just kind of a no chance, buddy?
So what's really funny is that night when he said it, the whole room exploded in no's and boos and some fuck yous, and the whole room was obviously against it. And then when the presidential nominations happened and things started happening, somebody fucking nominated him, and he had filled out the paperwork and everything. Like he had done it to be a nomination. It happened.
And when it came up,
people were pissed.
Yeah.
We don't know who did it necessarily, but people were angry that it even happened.
You know, from a strategic standpoint, from his point of view, it actually was smart to go there. Because if you look at 2020, and even more recently, the 2022 midterms, where he lost and where other Republicans lost in swing states, the Libertarian candidate was almost always more than the margin of victory. And I'm not saying that we all know that every single one of those votes wouldn't have gone Republican if the Libertarian candidate weren't there. But if he could take half of that, and let's say that 1.5%, he gets 0.75, that's the difference in winning a couple different states and maybe a totally different president. So from a strategic standpoint, it was, in my opinion, it was actually pretty smart for him to go there to try to court some of those votes, even if he didn't get the nomination. I think to just try to reach out to that crowd that's been ignored for so long by everyone in mainstream media and mainstream politics was actually a pretty smart play, either on his side or his campaign.
Oh, I agree. And I think RFK came as well, and he got a nomination and he did better because he really did have a lot of libertarians in there, myself included, especially at the very beginning, that questioned it. Because when he first came out, before everything else, and he opened his mouth, the first few interviews, I was seriously thinking about it. So yeah, I think it is really smart because no matter how much we want to say it, it gets exhausting losing. And if you actually see somebody you can believe in that has a chance, most libertarians are willing to look at that option.
Yeah.
He eventually stepped in the shit and wasn't a real libertarian, as we all know. And that is a whole nother game, but it is smart as someone who's worked on campaigns, as someone who's been an activist, somebody who works in the liberty movement, all the stuff done, walking into that and having the balls to do that is impressive. And yeah, it's a great plan. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's respect where it's due. You know what I mean? And did anyone actually believe him when he said if you nominated him and he won, he'd put a libertarian on his cabinet? Or I guess there's really no way to hold him to that promise because he's a lame duck the second he takes office.
Yeah, when we had the free Ross signs and he's like, I'll free him. We'll get it all handled. We'll get him out of jail. I'll put one of you on my cabinet, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, nobody believes that, but it's nice to have it categorized by the media.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody saw it. There's 1,000 libertarians plus everyone who watched it and everyone they tell that will remember that. Will he be held accountable? Fuck if I know. But it gives us some leverage of some kind to be like, look, this is some bullshit here. It's a play. That one, I really don't see it doing much, but
no, but it did bring attention to Ross Ulbricht, who a lot of people don't know anything about, including a lot of people listening to this show who might go Google it after we're done talking about it. I could go, it'd be a whole hour-and-a-half long diatribe if we talked about it.
A whole nother episode.
But no, what if he forces Biden's hand and Biden's like, oh yeah, watch this, and he pardons him? What if
Exactly. It could be a play that plays out in a way we don't even know, but do I trust Trump to do that? No. We've all seen what he does.
No. Trump sold a lot of people a bag of goods, and I say that as someone who's probably going to vote for him in November. He sold a lot of people a bag of goods in terms of draining the swamp, and then surrounded himself with the so-called swamp. And again, could criticize Trump all day on here for the promises that he didn't keep and a lot of my issues I've had with him, but I just can't stand Biden. So, okay, let's talk about you guys as presidential candidate now, because this may be the last time anyone does in media. So,
all right.
Who the hell is Chase Oliver?
Okay, so Chase Oliver is the candidate for the Libertarian Party this year. How do you explain Chase?
Wikipedia says he's an HR representative. Is that's on his resume? Like, hey, I fire people for offensive jokes on Twitter. That's what you make a dick joke, you're talking to me, from the water cooler. Like that's the guy.
So that's exactly. So we'll just be very blunt. He is very polished. He is very clean. He knows how to speak to an audience because he is a little slimy. Sorry, I'm just playing it out there. To be clear, Nebraska did not vote for Chase, even though the state did. Yes, I know, slap on the wrist, but it was not, we did not feel that Chase represented the majority of Nebraska for many, many reasons. So put that out there for all those people. Yes, we did not vote for Chase. We no to him in the end. And the reasons why are because the way he handles things, he is not well-versed on war and foreign policy. As a libertarian, you should say more than war sucks. Sorry, you should.
Yeah.
He focuses on things that are very important, but he's lacking in others. And now you have people who are just out of their minds angry on both sides for how it went down, because it was 7 rounds, hours of voting over this. And it was just ugly because nobody agreed.
Yeah. Well, so and I've done a little bit of research on this guy. I've watched a couple interviews. I've looked at some older tweets. The vibe I get is this guy's a little woke. Am I correct here in that assumption? Yeah.
100%. Because he is. And one of the...
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, no, you're fine. He's very woke. He holds that blue line, unfortunately, in a lot of ways. He's pushed for a lot of the mandates with vaccines and masks and stuff, and he was very pro forcing that, which is a concern. As a libertarian, you should be able to do what you want. And then me personally, I ran from a blue state because of those policies.
Right. Yeah.
So, I'm about to say it, and you're going to lose your shit because I know this is being your buddy and being on the show and each other's shows a few times. He's pretty big on the transitioning with children thing.
Yeah.
And when he was on our show,
he's never been on my show.
No, he's been on mine. We've been on each other's show. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Sorry. I thought you said he'd been on my show. I'm like, no, he's welcome to come on. I'd be happy to interview him, but no. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I just know from our previous experience, this is kind of one of those topics that you and I have discussed as a hot one.
Yeah.
When we pushed him about on the show, the way he responded was, I would never be willing to do surgical changes to a child, but medicine can be reversed. And when I asked about side effects, he said, that happens with mental medication and other sorts of things. And so I couldn't consciously vote for him. And at the end, he said, this is my vice presidential candidate. And there was this beautiful woman from Indiana. She was the chair of Indiana. My heart goes out to her again. He introduced her, said, this is it. And then when it came time to vote for the vice president, he stabbed her in the back. And Mike Termat came up to the mic and said that he was not going to follow through with promises he had made to chairs and people at National, and he was going to run with Chase Oliver. So in the last minute, Chase stabbed his vice president in the back, didn't tell her. Publicly, she found out. And then Mike Termat, being a cop, backstabbed what, half of the people in the audience when he decided to go up on the mic and back Chase Oliver as president.
Well, it sounds like it went swimmingly. I don't know what you're talking about. This sounds perfect to me. I don't see anything wrong with this.
We get to 1 a.m. on the last day because everybody decided that we were not going to leave. We have to get this done. So we waited till 1 a.m. to have everything just fucking blow up in our face.
That's crazy. I'm not laughing at your misfortune. I'm just laughing at the state of affairs. You know what I mean? It's
oh my God, yeah.
So I've seen another video of this guy where he says that, correct me if I'm wrong, drag shows for kids are no different than the Wiggles. Am I?
This is what I mean. How
That's
did this
retarded.
happen? Like,
that's retarded.
I can't.
It's not. There's a different. If you want to sit here and argue with me that drag shows for kids are good, then that's fine. Him and I can sit here and have that discussion. But don't fucking lie. Like, that's not true. You don't actually believe that. That's what pisses me off about people like that.
Well, and like I said, he's very polished. He can talk and present himself because he's a little slimy. He knows how to hide some of that stuff. He's a true politician. If you want to talk about getting someone who can play, he stabbed people in the back. He pushed himself forward by doing so. He won over people by jumping around and being who they needed him to be at that time. He was on my show at the end. I was like, I might be able to vote for Chase. He's not bad. And then I went back and looked at everything and I went, that son of a bitch. He's so smooth and good at it. He really is. Mike was my second pick. I was all for Termat. I went and saw him during the convention. I was ready to go. And then he got up there and did that. And I reminded myself, once a cop, always a cop. You don't talk to or trust police officers.
He was a
period.
cop?
I knew better. Yeah. And I found out he had multiple no-knock warrants on him. So not only is he a cop.
He was the one that did the knocking, or he got the raid at his house?
He raided people.
Okay.
He raided people. As a Libertarian vice presidential candidate, he was a cop and he raided people and no-knock warrants.
Who did you want of all the people initially?
So
I'm biased. I like Josh Smith as my friend, so I endorsed him early on, even though I had a feeling he wasn't going to win. But
so if we jump back to the very beginning of the whole thing, I was pushing pretty hard for RFK Jr. until he stepped in it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I seriously thought about Lars Mapstead for a long time. I had him on my show. I thought he was a pretty cool, down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about him, so I gave it a long time. And then he started to lead with his money first and his morals and principles second. And I don't play that game.
Well,
I'm not bought cheap.
The Lars Mapstead, where I had issues with him, for those of you that don't know that are listening, he was one of the founders of Adult Friend Finder, and which is an app that's commonly used for people to cheat on their spouses. And I know that's not anything to do with anybody's policy, but I just have some moral qualms knowing that someone would knowingly take money from a service like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, he leads with his money and morals and principles second. And I don't play that game. I'm not easily bought. So that was hard. Honestly, in the end, I voted with Reckenwald because he was the lesser of all of them. I didn't know who was best.
Sure.
And I wanted somebody that wouldn't embarrass the party, that knew pretty solid stuff on war, on all of the way it should have been. He had a mishap the night before, and I was sitting in the room going, I don't even know who the fuck to vote for anymore.
Yeah.
It was a mess that day. And it showed because it split. The vote took 7 rounds of split. It took forever. I was literally drinking out of my backpack with the rest of my delegation and throwing ninja stars and fucking frisbees with people in other delegations because everybody was checked out.
Well, that's the thing is, excuse me. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit there. So with Chase Oliver, and I hate to keep going back to this guy, do you think that this is actually going to help Donald Trump in the long run?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like this is someone who, there's no one that was ever going to consider voting for Trump that's going to vote for this guy.
No. And unfortunately, I think the attempt to bring Mike Termat on was supposed to bring in the more conservative vote, because he definitely is almost polar opposite to Chase, which is part of what's confusing about the ticket, is they are almost polar opposite.
But what's going to happen with that, though, is people that are on the outside looking in that aren't sold on Trump are going to look at the top of the ticket and say, no, thanks. And they're not going to give a rat's ass about who the vice president is.
Correct. And you have a lot of states. Libertarians are the third party, the largest third party, and we're trying. And I love them, and I will keep fighting for them as long as I can.
Right.
But we live in states that are going to be either blue or red.
Yeah.
That's just the fact.
Yep.
And Chase is too much of one side to sell in a lot of the conservative states, like mine. It will be an incredible battle to try to switch anybody in this state to vote for Chase who would be on the red side or even conservative leaning at this point.
Yep.
A lot of the libertarians across the country that are more conservative are livid. That's why he was fighting against Noda. It came down to Chase or Noda.
And he only won, it was like 60-40. He beat none of the above by like 20%.
Yeah, and everything until that point was like marginal. Like for a lot of time, it was like 31-28.
Yeah.
Between him and the person below. It was so marginal. And everybody's like, oh, he swept states. He took states by like 20%. And that's not 20% of the state. That's like 20% of the libertarians.
Of
so it's just not enough
people.
of the states to matter.
Yeah. Of 500 people. That's well, I've got a poll here with him. The first poll that's come out. It's got Trump at 42%, Biden at 41%, RFK at 8%, and Chase, Cornel West, and Jill Stein each with their own piece of the pie at 1%. So he's doing numbers right now. He's doing, and that's the shame, is I don't think there's ever been a bigger appetite for a third party. You've got Donald Trump, who the whole country, even the people that like him, are exhausted with. Joe Biden, pedophile, war criminal, has dementia. I mean, there's got to be someone competent that you could run. And then the fact the Libertarian Party is going to be the only party, the only third party, because RFK is not going to be on all 50 states ballots, the only third party with ballot access in all 50 states, and they managed to drop the ball like this is a shame. It really is.
It's nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating. I left convention feeling pretty beaten after that, because I don't know how to sell it to my state.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know how to sell it to their states. I don't personally like, it sounds so shitty, I don't personally like him enough as a politician to be able to push it in that side. That being said, I spent some time with Chase at convention. He is a nice guy. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's concerning a little.
So is George Bush.
Yeah, like
so
that's
Joe
just
Biden.
It. Like
Obama.
Yeah, these
they
people.
All are.
Yeah, they're nice people. I sat and talked to all of them, and then I watched as they played politics and stabbed people in the back and used their policies, and went, oh no, and then also brought people from either side because of, oh no, she did this or he did that. They were walking the aisles, pulling chairs aside to try to make deals with them to help them during the voting. Like, I know it's part of the game, but there wasn't enough merit there to see the bad parts and just pass by on any of them, really.
Yeah.
It was really shitty. And it sucks because this was the chance. Like you said, if we could have gotten Spike Cohen, sorry, Spike, I'm your buddy and I'm sorry to do that to you. And Dave Smith, also,
Dave Smith would have been phenomenal. I love Dave Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. I love them both. I saw them both this weekend. Either one would have probably rallied the troops together. And I hate to say that because I know both of them don't want to hear that and don't want it, but it's the facts. We needed somebody like that. Picking two polar opposites when we're already fighting in the party on that line was a mistake. And it will probably haunt us forever because this was a really solid chance with the two we had.
Like I'm telling you right now, Dave Smith, in terms of, I mean, he's having a moment right now. That guy in the next 5 years is going to be a superstar just on the national scale. Yeah. I mean, there's not, you won't see a louder voice and a better spokesman for libertarians than Dave Smith. He is absolutely blowing up on the national scale. I mean, he's on CNN, Piers Morgan, all the mainstream media has him come on there, and he's a comedian, so he's quick-witted, but he's also really, really intelligent. And they underestimate him like that. And I have seen that guy, even on issues I disagree with him on, just take people to the woodshed and really make me even reconsider how I feel about it because he's so convincing. And I know he had some personal things going on, and that's why he ultimately decided against it. But man, I mean, you want to talk about just poor timing, not being able to have him.
He would have been perfect. And he did a lot of the opening speeches before Trump and those people. He did a lot of the talking, and it was just so obvious that he would have been the best. And
For sure.
I don't know, maybe we should have just done a write-in and forced his hand, but he yeah, it sucks because we had some players in there that could have been really good. And once again, it kind of ended up the way Joe Jorgensen did. Nobody could agree. In the end, the Noda or her won, and here she is. And then we all know how that went. She's a great lady. Met her this weekend. She's very nice. Again,
Also
very, very nice.
Yes.
Yes.
Also,
we'll just keep that.
Yep. I've met her in person. She's a very nice lady. A very nice lady who has no business running for president.
Exactly.
Like most of these people. And that's the other thing with this guy is he's one of, and this has nothing to do with his quality of a candidate. I don't care who you fuck as long as it's not little kids or animals. But I mean, he's a gay guy, right? He's a gay guy.
Yeah.
And which doesn't matter to me, but it seems like he's one of those gay guys where a little too much of his personality is where he puts what's between his legs.
He definitely leads with it quite a bit, but I will say that he's pretty solid about not doing it constantly, but when you meet him, it's pretty obvious. He's not like hiding it, which is good. He shouldn't have to. You should love who you want.
Sure.
Thankfully, he's not constantly like, he's not.
We all know. Just use the word fag. It's okay. This is a safe space for slurs. It's okay.
Yes, he's not flamboyantly over the top, but and he's honest about it.
Yeah.
People are now saying that anybody who stands against him is homophobic. It's, of course, become an issue.
That's the identity and I'm seeing the identity politics from both sides, including from quote unquote my side that claims to hate playing identity politics, and their number one critique of the guy is that he's gay. I'm like, guys, stop. You're playing into the identitarian bullshit that has nothing to do with it. Is he gay? Yes, but there are plenty of other things you can criticize this guy for that would be legitimate criticisms, not what he decides to do with other consenting adults in his house. That doesn't matter to me all that much. Maybe it does to other people, but it certainly doesn't to me. So,
and honestly, this is going to sound maybe bad, but the fact of the matter is if we could have a libertarian candidate that did have a blue thing, whether I don't want to be like he has to be gay or it's not the case, but the fact that he did have a blue leaning, if he could be solid on war and solid on some of the other conservative concerns, that would make a perfect candidate. We need someone that's both. We can't have someone that's the problem.
I got it. I know who you need. George Santos. Yes, you described him. You need George. He's not doing anything.
He's not busy at all.
He's not got anything. He's not in court yet.
We have time. I mean, God, it'd probably be an upgrade at this point.
So I got a couple more questions before I get you out of here. We're making this a quick segment, but so there were conspiracy theories from people within your own party when Trump decided that he was going to speak during your convention, that the Mises Caucus, I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? The Mises Caucus, who took over the Libertarian Party, there were conspiracy theories that they were trying to Trumpify it and help Donald Trump get reelected. Is there any validity to those conspiracy theories? And I have an opinion on it I'll share after you tell me what you think.
Oh boy, you've laid the trap. No. See, I would say that there was never any plan to do that. There's no conspiracy theory to bring Trump in.
Yeah.
We all are very aware he is not a libertarian. We really were playing off his name. Now, I am part of the Mises Caucus. Mm-hmm. I am. So I'm not going to be, hiding that. But no, there was no plan to Trumpify it. There was no plan to try to make it anything like everyone I've talked to, including the top of the Mises Caucus organization, are all anti-Trump, 100%.
Right. And so my theory on that is if they were to hijack the Libertarian Party and try to emulate the image of Donald Trump and basically make it a mini Trump party, that would hurt Donald Trump. Because they would run candidates that were more similar to him and would siphon directly off of his voter base. It would essentially become what the Green Party is to the Democrats, where the hardline Republicans, if they don't like who the main Republican guy is, they'll turn and run there. So it doesn't make any sense. Honestly, if you want to talk about conspiracy theories trying to help Trump, it would be nominating the guy that they did nominate. That would make more sense because this is going to directly turn anyone off that was going to vote Trump or that was undecided between Trump and the Libertarian candidate.
Yeah, they really did. They they really kind of just he wrote Trump the nominee, like he's going to be president. They gave it to him because anybody that I could have seen maybe taking away from that is most likely going to. I mean, I spent the last 6 months with a lot of my friends and family saying, you can't vote for either of these two, just give it to Libertarian. The chances of them winning is very slim, but you could get us over the mark that would get us to where we could actually debate correctly, get us to that 5%, the magical 5%.
Yeah.
How do I go back now and tell some of my most conservative family that they need to not vote for Trump, but instead they need to vote for the Libertarians and have someone that is completely against majority of what they believe?
Yep.
How do I do that now? How do I sell that to my state?
Yep. I mean, the movement that started with Ron Paul in 2012, it is, I hate to be a Debbie Downer for you guys, but it's time to hit the reset. You got to start over. That's what essentially what this was. This was the nuke. And it's fallout time.
When I watched Ron Paul come out and half of the room exploded and was so excited, and you could see people tearing up and everybody was chanting with him, and he smiled and he's like, I'm with friends finally. It was like welcoming him back to the stage.
Yeah.
And then some people got up and left, which fuck them. If you leave during Ron Paul, do not come back.
What the hell's the matter with you? Yeah.
Hey, thank you. So those people did not.
It's too bad he's a billion years old, because I would vote for that guy. Me and all my dead relatives would vote for Ron Paul. You know, I mean, I would find a way to make it happen if that were the case. That's
I mean, at 88, he's better than Biden. So if we're just going to let Biden continue to run the world with his finger on the nuke, we should put Ron Paul there.
He is. And Ron Paul had a stroke not even 5 years ago, and he's still more put together than Biden. Still more put together. It's crazy. He's sharp. The guy's on the air for hours a day. That's why at any age, believe me, at any age, it's tough to talk for hours a week on the air. I'm not even 30, and it's exhausting. But I can't imagine being in my pushing 90 years old. Dude. It's very, very impressive mentally and physically at that age. It's wild that he's able to still do that. That's
and he's smart, like you said, and he's witty, and he's a damn god. Everyone should love Ron Paul, and if you don't, get fucked. But you know, he makes comments about getting up the stairs, and like he masters them and makes little gestures, like I can climb. Like he's great. Everything he does is just magic. I love that man.
That's awesome. I mean, so I just wish all the people that were upset about Gary Johnson in 2016 could see the state of affairs now.
Well, and it sucks because I honestly do not think that Chase would have taken the nomination if people weren't being spiteful.
Sure.
There were other people that would, have fit that same sort of bill that Chase did. Other people that had more money, that had better policies in other places. I think that a lot of it came down to people that were still really fucking butthurt about the Mises takeover. And so they were like, we're not going to let Mises take anything. And instead of thinking it through, they just decided to pick who they like. The numbers were growing, so they threw their hats in. And then Mike came and said, vote for him. He'll give me the VP spot. So if you were going to vote for me, you'll be able to get me here. And all those people were like, okay. And here we are.
It's all about tribalism and winning. Scoring points.
Now we have a vaccine mandated lover mask wearing president and a Fed lying no knock warrant cop.
That's right. 10 people were allowed at his Thanksgiving, and they all had to be masked. I saw that tweet. I saw that, which, again, I get that he's not asking the government to do it, but let's be honest, man. COVID wasn't that long ago. If the way you behaved yourself in your personal and private life tells most people all they need to know about you, about the type of person you are, and whether or not they want to associate with you. And I have absolutely no desire to have any type of affiliation, personally, professionally, or politically, with someone that would have made me wear a mask in their house on Thanksgiving. It's so fucking retarded.
Yeah, and he double downs on it. He's not really making any sort of apology for it. He's, I've learned, like everyone else, like it's not been anything. And I'm not saying you need to come out and apologize for things you've done 10 years ago, but don't double down. Yeah. And the thing with the kids and the transitioning and all of that sort of stuff, I asked him flat out on my show because it was a concern I had, and he did the same thing. He did the same thing. Yeah. See, the transitioning kids is such that's a deal breaker for me. That's one of those issues. This ain't left and right, man. This is humanity versus evil. This is good versus evil. It literally, it's like that. And there's one of my favorite movies, Boondock Saints. There's have you seen that movie? Oh, it's one of my favorite movies.
The
yes.
quote at the beginning where the priest says, you know, we must all fear evil men, but there's an even greater evil that we should fear even more, which is the indifference of good men. So it's bad. The people that straight up say, yeah, we want to trans your kids, or we think that that's a good thing, blah, blah, blah. Of course, those are bad people. That goes without saying. But the people that you have to be more afraid of are the ones that go, that ain't my business. Those are the ones you really got to watch, because they're the ones that are just letting it happen, and they have the power to actually do something about it. So that and guns are pretty much the only issue where it's like, okay, I don't care how else you feel on any other issue. I cannot support you if you're on board with this.
Yeah. And now I'm the chair of the Nebraska party, and I have people telling me I need to just do it. He's the LP candidate. Just do it. Support him, post it. Don't. And then there's me going, I can't. Not only can I not morally, and half of my board can't all of my board can't morally pretty much, but I put that out in my state. Every ounce of project and work I have done to meet the people in my state, which is a conservative red state, is delegitimized. It's gone. I have to start all the way over. It's done.
Yeah, that's a good segue. And the last question I wanted to ask you. This is not about the convention, so we can take the anger down a notch. It's all good.
Oh, thank God. The tension.
So there's a guy that's running for Senate who I've actually interviewed on the show. His name's Dan Osborne. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yes, I love Dan Osborne.
So
yes.
Dan Osborne decided about a month ago, he said, I'm going to run my campaign totally independent, and I don't want the endorsement of any party. And Jane Klebe, I just call her dumb bitch. She came out, and the chair of the state Democratic Party, and she threw a hissy fit. And we read the whole thing, the whole tweet where she sounded like a 16-year-old girl on Facebook whose boyfriend wasn't texting her back. And we read the whole tweet out and just absolutely crying, throwing a fit about how Osborne led the Democratic Party on, and he lied to them and used their resources knowing he was never going to take their endorsement. And there were other implications later on that he did the same thing to you guys. Did you ever get that vibe that was the case?
No. So he came to North Platte and he asked, back up. He came to our convention.
Yeah.
And asked if he could have a table. And we said, of course. And he paid for the table fee and he was there and I met him. And then he came to North Platte to talk with the railroad workers because they are someone who did back him because he's a union guy and they're union. And that's a whole nother thing. So he came to North Platte, and I felt personally that any time a political entity comes here, if I have the invitation or the opportunity, being the chair, I should go and meet them. So I did. He is incredibly based. He really knows what he's talking about. He chose to be independent because he does not want to run with anybody else's rules on him. He doesn't want to have to be told that he has to be red, blue, libertarian. When I was there, he asked for my support as far as like if I felt personally, I could take a sign or I could do these things. He paid for my dinner and a drink because I took the time to come out there. Unbelievably cool guy, very based on what he had to say. He never propositioned or asked for an endorsement in any way. He talked about working together if we had things that crossed over. He was great. I did hear that night from other people about the Democrat bullshit, and she's a crazy lady, and she's just a typical Dem. Like, she just is. You're saying she's crying a 16-year-old girl, and I'm like, yeah, checks off. Like,
she is insufferable. Just some of the things she says on Twitter. And I remember she used to call into my boss, Chris Baker. She used to call into his show all the time, and I would hear her on there, and it was just the absurdity of it all. But no, I figured that was going to be your answer, because based on my, albeit limited, communication with him, I could see them getting some mixed messages because, like you said, he is a really nice guy. And maybe they interpreted that as him stringing them along, but that wasn't the case at all. I didn't get the vibe. And now she's saying they're going to run a write-in candidate against him. I'm like, hold on. So you were ready to endorse him because you obviously agreed with him in principle. So you were ready to endorse him until he said, hey, I don't want your endorsement. Now you're going to kneecap him and basically cost him the election. So it was never about principles to her. It was about winning and scoring points. That's basically the vibe I got from it. Because if it were about principle, she would have had the same approach that you did, which was, hey, he's not going to run with our party. It's cool. He wants to be independent, but I think he's better than Deb Fischer, so I'm going to endorse him. But she didn't do that. So that tells me all I need to know about her.
Yeah, and honestly, as a libertarian through and through, an anarchist in many ways as well, I will vote for Dan Osborne as an independent. He makes so many things. Do I agree on everything? No, but
Same.
the things I do not agree on are not things that I think are morally corrupt to the point of needing to run. I like Dan. I would support Dan. I have a sign. Like, I really like Dan Osborne. I really do. And he's a nice guy, but not politician nice. He's a real
He's very
nice
human.
guy.
That was the vibe I got, was that he's very human. And no, it's like I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think Fisher is a swamp creature that's no better than the Bidens and the Dan Crenshaws and the Pelosi's of the world, and I think she needs to go. And if
she crawled out of the same bog.
She did. And if someone better runs in 6 years and I want to vote for them over Osborne, then so be it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I would rather, if we're going to take a swamp creature down, I would rather do it with an independent like him that maybe I agree with on 60% of the issues than a Democrat who I'm going to agree with on 15%. That's my logic behind it. So I think Fisher's got to go.
I completely agree. And I think the percentage thing may sound silly, but I agree. I think that the Libertarian Party needs to remember that we agree on probably 95% of the things. Yep. Pick a thing. We probably agree. The other part of it, once we are at the point where we can actually win on a consistent basis and we can fight about that then. But right now, we need to focus on what we agree on so we can grow the party as big as we can, because we're playing tiny little side of the field compared to the other guys, and having them take us serious enough to show up was a major victory. Major.
Absolutely. Do you have anything you want to plug before you peace out of here?
Well, of course, I have to say the Anti-Politics podcast with my boys. We are live, and our stuff comes out on Mondays. We're live Sunday nights on Facebook. Everything else posts Monday, usually afternoon. It's been a fantastic little place to get some of this steam off. It's not a place to be political. It's great. So,
yeah. Let me know if you ever want me back on that. I've done it before. It was a lot of fun.
I'd love to have you back. We should have you back in and do a recap of all of this and some of the other. They'd love to hear your take on some of this too. I know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be down. We'll set it up soon.
For sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Rachael Nelson. I appreciate you coming on my show. Always great to hear from you. All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next up, we're going to get into store brand TMZ. Stay tuned.